Hello there, and welcome to my arty corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela, and amongst other things, I love to draw, and I love to create, and I also love to encourage and inspire and motivate and I guess kind of teach or demonstrate how you too can draw, or how you can perhaps gain some ideas to add into your art practice, particularly with reference to sketchbooks, because I rarely ever do a finished piece on my channel or in my sketchbooks, because that is all about exploring and experimenting and discovering new things you can do, new things to try out, and sometimes things just don't work, and that's fine, because it just means, nah, that's not for me, and you move on. So before I start today, I'm going to say a big thank you to everybody who's subscribed. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't subscribed yet and you like what you see, please consider clicking that subscribe button. It is totally free. It doesn't cost you a penny. I think it should be called follow rather than subscribe, but there we are. That's YouTube. And thank you for all the comments and the thumbs up and for sharing and giving shout outs. I appreciate that so much. And today's video is actually a response to a comment left on one of my community posts where I showed 2 pictures of some hand lettering. And I thought that would be a nice thing to do today, because I'm so tired today. I didn't get any work done for my book yesterday, and I think I'm going to be back in bed before too much longer. I woke too early and just couldn't get back to sleep. So I spent ages doing a page full of hand-lettered sweary words, because it seemed like the right thing to do, because, you know, and quotes. So 2 pages actually, nearly. Yeah, I promise not to use sweary words here. So what somebody asked about was to do with some hand lettering I'd done and how I actually achieved patterns and so on. So I've dug out some of my pre-coloured pieces of A5 paper, A5-ish paper, coloured with distress inks, and then I used a simple stencil just to add some extra pattern on there. These will be fine because I like to work on coloured backgrounds. And I'm going to choose words that are, well, relatively nice and easy. I'm considering what I'm going to use to draw these with. I'm going to use just some pencil lines because I'm quite comfortable drawing things all on a wonk. But you might want to use pencil lines to decide how you want to draw your letters and what style you'd like them in. So I'm just doing mine in pencil like this. W's and M's vex me. Perhaps that one there. And I could have done with moving this over actually, because I've run out of space on the end and I wanted to put an exclamation mark there. So I'm glad I didn't do it in ink actually. So let's have a look. I perhaps won't put the pencil guidelines in first, but if we move it over, I want some big chunky letters here. And I am doing a mixture of uppercase and lowercase because it's my hand lettering. And I'm deliberately making them different sizes and fitting them in as I think they'd be fit. Bearing in mind, I'm working in pencil, so that gives me options, you know, to adjust things as I fill it in. And I am going to use an alcohol marker to fill this in. I do need a piece of paper to go underneath, which I think can be this one, so that I can, because this is that mixed media paper, so it's likely to feather and bleed at the edge, but at least it will go through the paper and onto some scrap paper underneath. I'm not making any effort to precisely copy the letters. I'm adjusting things as I go along with them, because the pencil lines are just but a guide. And I can see I'm running off the screen a little bit. For some reason, I've got my board all the way over there, my camera this way. It's Wednesday. What can I say? Hump Day Wednesday. So it looks like Tuesday and Wednesday this week are my weekends, and I'll be working on Saturday and Sunday to make up for the time. So draw, because that's what we do here. In fact, my D could be bigger, I think. And that's easy enough to adjust, because I'm going to be colouring these in a moment. Tell you what, I could do with a brush pen to do that with. So 2 ticks while I just dig out my black brush pen from the Ohuhus, which are just down by the side of my desk. You can tell forward planning isn't always my thing. It's not really. Genuinely, forward planning, nah. Because if I plan, I change it often anyway. But I saw this comment yesterday and I thought, oh yeah, well that'd be a nice way to show people how to use patterns in a different way. Because although I explain things, I don't always show what to do. And I know that showing is a good way of explaining to people. It's easier to show than to work in words, or to try to explain in words at times. And if you do, you gain more out of doing it yourself, I think. Okay, so hopefully these are big and bold, and I'm fine with big bold letters today. These are really big and bold, far bigger than I'd normally do. But that's going to be, add some interest, some fun to this. So I'm not entirely sure whether I'll ever go back and do much work with this. I think my experiments in hand lettering are very much works in progress at the moment. And I'm not really sure where it's all going. But the more I do, the more I try things out, the more I know I'll circle in on what is right for me. You can see even now with the brush pen, I'm using that just to adjust the lines a little bit as I see perhaps I want them to be adjusted. Just that little bit more. Don't ever be afraid of doing that. If you are into Zentangle, then they often talk about showing a little love, just going back and making adjustments. And I think they use the term sculpting for changing the shape of a line. So you're sculpting it to the shape you want it to be. It's a kind of additive sculpting where you're adding ink rather than taking it away. But it's still a kind of, did you know that there's 2 types of sculpting? There's a sculpting where you start with a big lump of something, like a big lump of rock or wood, and you take it away to create the sculpture. And that's called reductive, obviously. An additive is where this is what I prefer when I've done such things. I made some ceramic tiles with textures on the top inspired by Romanesque architecture or sculptures, actually from the fabric of the clothes on an angel, the tympanum above the main door of Malmesbury Abbey. So the folds of the cloth and so on. And so I started with a flat piece of clay and I gradually built up the shapes. So they were roughly what I wanted, and then I did some reductive sculpting once the clay had turned to dried, so it was quite leathery, and so it was a mixture of the two. But I can't see how I could start with a big lump and take stuff away. It doesn't compute in my head anyway. A sculptor friend of mine tried to explain to me how he'd sculpted a globe of the earth out of a huge square block, and all the geometry and stuff to get it perfectly spherical. And I went, look, don't try, it's maths. Don't do maths. But I think it was I think it was Michelangelo said that, what's the quote? It's about, you know, somebody asked, how does he know what to sculpt or how to sculpt? And he just said, I think he said something like, I see the angel inside the stone and I just set it, you know, I carve to set it free, which is quite poetic, really. So there we are, one big word draw and some side notes about art and things. Now then, I'm wondering which book it's in. Have I got that particular sketchbook to hand? This is the question, because I can show you if it's in this sketchbook. Again, this is me not being very planned, but this has been me all the way through my existence. Oh yeah, it is in this one. As a teacher, I was asked about these ones. How did I create these? So this one, I put the lettering on and then I put a pattern round it. And while I was doing that, I thought, why can't I draw over the black? Which is what I did here. And these ones as well. But here I used a gel pen, a coloured gel pen, and I actually did draw over the letters. But you can't see it because the gel pens will sink into the black and you won't see the colour. And here I used some Jelly Roll pens. So I'll start doing one with a gel pen, and then I can go back and do ones with something else. Right, that's what I was looking for. I want my ruler. I've said it before, but I love these rulers that have got the grids on that you can see through, and you can line up with the edge of your paper to create a border around it, which is exactly what I'm doing here. I'm making it equidistant all the way around, and it's just a guide as to where I'm going to let the patterns and things stop, so I've got a bit of a frame around the edge of it. And I've chosen this pen, this gel pen, to draw with. You could draw with it over black, but I like the difference in colour because it means that this shows up. But there is a way to get the pattern to go on the letters, and if you've seen a Zentangle video where they do this, I don't remember which series, or which pack it was, but it was the pack where they had like a sketchbook that came and parts of the paper had like spillages of black ink on, and so they drew in black on the white and white on the black and carried patterns over. But I don't think I'm going to do that here, but I thought this is what would happen if I was to put a word on top of patterned paper. And I'll do some of the other kind on the other side in a moment, because this is sketchbook stuff, so it's not meant to be anything else. So I'm just drawing patterns on here, and I am using not worrying about stopping at the letter. I'm just drawing straight over it because I can't see. I think in the right kind of light, you can just about make out there's some marks from the gel pen that I'm using, but not much. I could use a fine liner here, or one of the brown microns would be quite nice. Though mine has been a pain, it has dried itself up. I'm sure I've got another one somewhere. I usually buy them in twos, or usually threes, when I buy pens. But I think I could only get 2 of the brown microns. So they become quite difficult to find in the UK, like many other things. So I'm just drawing here sort of like some of my typical, what I call entangled art. It's quite kind of abstract, and it's actually what I really love to do as well. But we'll start popping in some things that look more like Zentangle patterns. So this one, I don't know what this one's called, but it's like having fan shapes here. And again, because I don't have to stop or leave a space around the black letters, I can just carry on drawing. And of course this becomes really fun when you draw through it and you can see how the lines carry on behind. So I'll get there. So I really do like doing things just like this. The nice thing about these gel pens as well is on this paper, even with the distress ink background, they are permanent, so that I could use water-based media on the top of them. I think they're okay with alcohol markers, so I'd be thinking about adding shadow to these to bring out some volume and some dimension here. Because that's fun to do, is to play with space. Drawing two-dimensionally, and yet I like to create three-dimension, an illusion of dimensionality, and it is that illusion because it's fun, and also because you're not, it's not real. It's quite fun to bend and warp space. I'm not in the ilk of Escher, whose work I do love. I grew up with pictures of Escher everywhere. My older sister is quite arty as well. She'd say she's very arty. And she actually went to art college, and did her foundation year twice, and I'm not sure if she finished it or not, but I get the feeling that university wasn't quite for her. I did science and I've now become a jobbing artist, so go figure. But I hope she doesn't watch this. She'd be really irked with me for saying that. She's just irked with me in general, I think. We all do what we do, and in different ways, and lives take different paths, and often unexpected paths and twists and turns as well. So, but I understand why she is as she is as well, so that's okay. Families, weird things, aren't they? And trust me, I'm not going to tell you much about mine, but mine is weirder than most. So, full of rampant extroverts, and I'm the only introvert in the family. So I tend not to have much to do with them because it's just overwhelming, and just lots of things, which is fine. We all have to do what we need to do to look after ourselves. So this is one of my favourite patterns. You might notice I use it quite a lot in my more abstract entangled art, or even in whimsical art. There's just something lovely about it. It sort of like reminds me of fish scales, or puffy clouds. Sometimes I'll use it as, or trees. The fluffiness. It depends how you create it. If you do it along a line or whatever, then it tends to be a bit like the crescent moon pattern, Zentangle pattern, but I quite like to do it in its own wandering kind of way. And I'll get it to a point where I go, yeah, I like that. I like the edge I've got there. And what's nice is it can morph quite nicely into Diva Dance, which again is one of my favourites. And I think I will do this as a thread going off this way. Not something I would ordinarily do would be to section my page up. I'm doing this today as a bit of a demonstration, I guess. So, and you'll get the idea of how fun this is to do. Once you've finished all of this, of course, there's nothing at all stopping us going back and adding, an outline, say in white gel pen, to the letters, or in another coloured gel pen, one that's opaque, or a Posca pen. I don't have any Posca pens. I think I've got some white and black ones here. I may even have some metallic ones. I'm not entirely sure, because I've got stuff stashed away everywhere and I haven't really done a good inventory or look at things for a long while. But it's so I've got this kind of window feeling going on here, where we can see the diva dance going through these the gaps, the holes inside the letters. There is a name for them. There's some of the books on lettering I've bought go into great detail about all the, sort of the anatomy of a letter, as it were, all the different points and what they're called. And I just go, do I really need to know that? Intellectually, I'd like to, or I say intellectually, sort of like gathering that kind of weird knowledge, but for some reason it just slides out of my head. So I think it's important perhaps for design or graphic design or typographical design, but I hand letter, which is drawing letter forms, and it's in quite an artistic way, I suppose, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I quite like the variation in letters that we get as well. So I'm just working on this one just so that I can get perhaps some of this going through that hole inside the D. So bear with me for a moment. Not the D, the A. I've nearly filled up the one on the D, which is here. So I think this line through will be the last one through the D. Not quite there at the A yet, which is what I was hoping for, but if I don't get there, I don't get there. I'm not going to get all upset about it. Because that serves no purpose. It's not going to make it happen any quicker. And I am rushing doing things here more than I'd want to. I can see there's little gaps in these little bulges on the diva dance, which I normally wouldn't allow to be left there, so I just went back and touched some of the worst offenders up. I think I'll pop a little bulge there. We'll have one here because that'll start to kick this line upwards, so I'll get into the letter A there. And if I add one, perhaps one there as well, that might help. So let's see how that works. And I don't have to go through the D now. In fact, I think we've got a couple of lines that have that I've missed here, so I think I'll pop that in as a bulge, as if it's this lower line here, and then I can just keep on going. The advantage of being able to draw over these letters, so that I'm using a coloured pen here, but you could use, just a black pen, is that it keeps the lines flowing. Because you know how difficult it can look at times to get lines to join up where you stop and start and leaving a gap between them. Here, because I can draw directly over all of these, I get this lovely, the line flows. Can be done in one fluid motion, well, almost one. So I'm not going to do over the D or the R, but here I can go right the way over. I will have that one there, perhaps a little bit here. I won't put one there, I've got dips there, so let's go and over. And you just get that feel of it flowing as if it's a river, because it does look a bit like a river. And perhaps I'll just pop another border along the bottom. And I'll leave this one as it is. Let me have a look. So a couple of auras on either side just helps Diva Dance to fade out a bit, I think. Okay, so there's that. So I could carry on with this and do that. I'm not going to, because I have got a black pen here. So this is something else that we can do. Let me just get those out the way. I don't need those for a moment. So if I start here, what I'm going to do here is I'll do some Diva Dance going this way. Now the nice thing about working here is I can see where the line is on the black. Now whether this would be picked up as I scan things in or photograph them, I don't know. But it shows up a bit on camera. So what I can do, and what I am going to do, apart from getting my gel pen to work on the back of my hand, is where this line has gone over the exclamation mark, I can join those up. And I can even add a little hump to the middle as well that I can then use for adding to the Diva Dance, which I will do now. Perhaps I'll add a little hump there. And yeah, I know I'm not being very tidy around my edges of the borders, but I'm fine with that as well. With the micron pens, it's best not to overwork the top of them with the gel pen, because the gel pen will shift some of the pigment. And if you leave, the longer you leave them to dry, the better. Excuse me. Got a tickle in my throat. Tell you what, there is something in the air. It has been for the past few days that's getting me coughing a lot, and it's my asthma. There's some kind of allergen floating around. Don't remember being affected this time of year before, but you know, things happen. So here is where I'm going to add in the other side of these bumpy bits. That's dried up because I'm trying to roll it along the top of black ink that hasn't fully dried yet, but it'll be fine. You'll get the idea. Once the gel pen's dried, I'll come back and do another layer. You can see already that we're beginning to get the fluidity of the pattern through this exclamation mark. Did I say letter I previously? You know I meant exclamation mark. Gosh, there was a chap, comes into mind once I said that, there was a chap I remember seeing on television years ago who would read things out and would make sounds for each exclamation mark. Can't remember the chap's name, but it was quite fun to watch or to listen to in its own way. And he'd make gestures with his hands for what the exclamation marks were as well. So it was quite fun. Yeah, I'm going back to childhood and seeing that. So I don't know, can't remember who he was, but I'm sure if somebody remembers, they'll leave a comment. Oh, I say this, I'll try to remember. I don't always remember things and look it up on Google. But there's no guarantee I'll manage to do that because, you know, I can be a right dippy mare at times. So I'm just going to put a couple of blank lines here, just like I did with the brown pen. Just to give it that edge, and then this one will be a little bit on the different side. Because of the white lines that are here. And yes, I'm going to use the white gel pen to go over the white lines. Or the black lines on the black. You know what I mean. So let's have a look. So this one needs to be done. In fact, I've just put these in and they actually need to go right the way across, don't they? And then there's this one in between like that. So one of the major problems of using gel pen is that it doesn't want you to go back over it very much. But I find doing little dots and being very light-handed will help. So there we go. So we've got that going on. So that's how I did this. Okay, so those are the one with the colour that fades into the black, and then the other one where if you use a black pen and white, you can pick them out. I mean, I could use, what colour have I got here? Have I got a darkish brownish colour? Yeah. Not sure how dark this is, so let's have a look. Bring my scrappy paper over a moment. And let's have a look. Because I've got that colour, but I do have this one as well. Now these are Jelly Roll Moonlight pens. Now I should be able, can I see? I'm going to try and connect these as well. All right, so we have, there's this one that goes to here, and that would be a bigger section like so. This one would become this kind of shape. This is where it would have been very useful for me to actually draw these in, because I can see the red lines going through here. But I've got this one perhaps going like this, and then it would come over, down and up. There we go. Go like that. I think I've missed a line here somewhere. No, I've missed a line on the other side. I've miscounted how many of these I have. Like so. And so I'd have that one there, and then I'd have another one there. So I just need to draw one more of these red lines in on the outside here, and that'll be fine. See, nothing is ever irredeemable. So we could do it that way. And you could play with this. You know, I know that I could play with this quite happily to have perhaps some of these going over the R and, you know, not over the D and so on. So they weave in and out, if that makes sense. And that would be quite a lot of fun to do. So I'm just making this one here that much bigger, because there was a gap there that was bugging me. So that's quite nice. But what I find is really lovely to do, and I'm going to choose a different colour here. What colour would go nicely? A blue, or use this green, because this green, if I was going to, I think this works best if I'm going to use light and airy. Just move that out of the way. Light and airy patterns. So something like, as if this will work, it will do. Sometimes they just take a little bit of time for the gel ink to start working. So I can do light and airy kinds of patterns that have got a lot of open area, so that we don't lose all of the black ink, but we can add pattern inside as well, which I'm going to do here. Any opaque gel pen or paint pen will work for this. I like these. I like the Jelly Roll Moonlights. I've had these in my stash for over a year and I've barely used them, but suddenly I'm now finding a use for them in this, which is great. Well, I think it is. So just going to add some little bits of pattern on this side. So it sort of looks like a weird leaf, but there's nothing that says that they all have to go over the top of the exclamation mark. We can have them weaving in and out behind. Where I've got some overspills, I can use a black pen to tidy that up later. And I could do the same here if I wanted any of these to disappear, so they look like they're being woven underneath. That colour's a bit yucky actually, but the idea, the principle is there. It's up to you how you go about doing something with this. If this is something you choose to do, I'm doing it here with some lettering, but you could do sort of flowers in silhouette, or anything that you can draw in a silhouette form with some open areas if necessary. You could do the same kind of thing with. But somebody did say, how do you do this? Well, your answer is here. This is how I do this. These Moonlight pens are lovely. They're quite subdued colours. They're not the bright in your face, garish colours that sometimes you get with gel pens. But they are a bit more subtle. But apparently, under ultraviolet light, they glow a little. I don't have an ultraviolet light to test that out. Or I may have somewhere, but I'd have to find it. But I find that quite an intriguing kind of idea, I suppose. So putting patterns over the top of them like this, having things growing in and around them, I think you do need fairly light and open patterns for that. Whereas this kind of thing here, where you're decorating around the patterns, then you can have quite dense patterns if you're using a colour, not black, because the black, it would just all fade into one. And again here, you think you have to be quite cautious how much you have going over letters with this kind of pattern. But it works. You know, either way. So it's quite fun to have this spilling out, going behind the D and R and spilling out over the A and away again. And of course this then could grow over the top if I wanted. But I'm not a big fan of using too many colours. I think I'd stick to the two. So I hope that made some sense. But I think before I do anything else, this is where I do have to be cautious, because whereas the gel pen I used for drawing is permanent, the jelly rolls aren't. They'll always react with water. So I don't want to use anything water-based with them. But I think I could probably make use of some, have a look. Right, okay, let's have a look. No, it's not that one. It must be. I am looking for, that's the one I wanted. Okie dokes. I've got some of my pale, warm, browny, grey colours here. These are from the Artezas. So I've got one that's called Pearl and the other one's Blush Grey. So they'll go not quite nicely because they are warmer colours. So I can just add some shadows underneath these scallop shells and around this here. I'm not sure if these are picking up. I don't think they are picking up the gel pen, which is good because I wasn't sure about that. Having never used alcohol pens on gel pens before, as it were. But today is the day for this, seems. Of course, you can use any medium you like to add shadow. Charcoal or soft pastels would work, graphite, pencils, coloured pencils, watercolours if that's what you prefer. So that automatically has added some dimension here. But that's quite a light colour. And I'm going to put a shadow underneath it on this side. And I may even, with a darker pen, I've got a darker, oh, wrong side. Darker one here. I'm just going to add just that hint of a darker shadow underneath them as well, because that pearl was a bit on the light side, wasn't it? It does show up, but every now and again I just think sometimes you have to go, yeah, I need a bit more contrast for this. So that's what I'm doing. Keeping this one though to the left and the bottom of that curve on the outside of each of these scallop shells. And if it spills over to the inside of the scallop shell, I'm not worried, because this is just trying this out and seeing how we can make that kind of difference. So just add a bit more of that intenser shadow, and I'll do the same on this side just to lift this up that little bit. I think I might need some here as well. That'd be nice. Okay, I'm going to add some shadow around the letters just to lift them above the pattern as well. So again, I'm sticking to that rule of to the left and to the right, to the left and the bottom. I may need a darker pen for this, but at least I can make a start with this. I think I've mentioned it before, but traditionally this was the way that shadows, drop shadows, were added to letters and in type and artistry, because there's less detail on the left and the bottom of letters. Now, even though I've got a pattern going over the top of this letter A here, I still want to put that drop shadow in, because that, and the same here, because the shadow would still be there even though there's something over the top. And although I can't really add any shadow to these parts, I could add a bit of highlight if I wanted to. But I just want some of that. And I might go for a slightly darker colour. I think it was a stone. Yeah, just along the edge perhaps, just to lift this up. And it will help to separate the shadow here with the R because they overlap. And the A as well. Just realised, oh no, I haven't gone through onto my cutting mat. That's a blessing. If I was using the Ohuhu brush markers, then it would have definitely gone through. Got some bleeding here. Oh look, I didn't do the exclamation mark. So I'll do that here and now. And oops, as I colour my finger, because you know that's going to happen today. One shadow between them, and then here as well around the edge. So that will work. So just that bit of shadow just helps to lift things up somewhat and add some dimension so the letters are floating. But it also gives a feeling of translucency to the patterned areas. It's a strange one. There's all kinds of things you can do, but I just felt it needed it. And I'm going to have to tidy up around the edge of the letters because that alcohol marker I've added has caused the edges to bleed, so it's no big deal. Just needs a quick pass with this and it all will be well and good in the world again. Quite surprised how much it has bled actually. But then I shouldn't be surprised given that I'm not using marker paper for this. But there we go. So I don't know what you think of this as an idea. I don't know whether you think it's something you'd be interested in or to try. But you know, if somebody did ask, and I just thought it would be something interesting perhaps just to do for the interest of doing it. I tell you what I do need to do is I've got this kick up here for the A, and I've managed to get one there for the R and the A, so let's just tidy those up. And the other thing I can do with this, and I'm going to do this just because I can, but not necessarily because it's something that I would perhaps do in concert with all the patterns behind. But I could use gel pens to add patterns inside even these dark letters. So I've got that going on there. And then I didn't bring a fine liner with me, but I can just carry them on outside of the letter. As if we're starting to get a different pattern going on. So it's akin to this, but instead of having lines flowing around, I'm using a different kind of pattern to show up in the letters like that. It's actually quite fun, really. Again, I'll just carry that one around like so. So just a little bit of something a bit different there, which is fun. Yeah, I think I like this with the black where it changes to white. That's if I wanted to draw the patterns around in black, you know, that surround the letters or go through the letters. So I quite like that. But I think of all of them, that appeals to me more than this. But I think the use of colour and perhaps no going over is my favourite. But I think I could happily use white then to bring out some something a bit different in the letters. So here I'm going to draw a aura within the letter, a border within, a line within, just to emphasize the shape of the letter D, or that it is a letter D. Just like that. Can you imagine how difficult it would be to actually colour that in? But gel pens are magic, so I could use white. I could use another colour. They've got a lovely pale grey there, or pale blue, or a pale purple. And then I'll leave the others just as they are, because I don't want, you know, they are what they are now, and it's a sketchbook page. So I'm going to say thank you for joining me. They do sound similar, don't they? And I hope this has been useful for you. It's given you some ideas. Yesterday's stuff. Where did I put yesterday's stuff? Where? Yeah, exactly. Where have I put it? I don't know. Is it there? Nope. I've put it somewhere safe. I just don't know where safe is. Oh, darn it. But yes, in my last video, I was drawing these little pictures within little boxes and adding colour to the boxes. And, oh, I think it's under here. Just get them. Because what occurred to me with those, I'll get the one that is like this. Ew. That's not on marker paper. It's as though I added some pattern to the backgrounds with white dots. Oh, I did have a PN out. I tell you. Then there's nothing stopping us adding pattern to the backgrounds, even if it's just a simple line pattern. The colour showing through. Or even something a bit more complex, like, well, if I do another line or series of lines here, perhaps, then we could split this up into boxes, like so. I should put the lines in first, really, shouldn't I? And then I can join these up and put some kind of pattern in them. I'll put well in because it's my favourite. It's funny, when you get stuck on patterns that are your favourites, it's very hard to think of other patterns that would work in their place, isn't it? Do any of you find that you've got your favourite patterns that you turn to time and time again, and for variation you need to go and look a pattern up? Whether you look back in, you know, you've got a book like I have where I keep patterns, or you go to a website, or you look at your previous work. My go-to website for Tangle patterns is tanglepatterns.com. And I buy the PDF every year to support the site. There's, I think it's Linda Farmer, isn't it, runs it. And she's a CZT, and she puts together a PDF of all the patterns that are there at the end of a particular year. So the 2022 PDF has got all the patterns in it that were there at the end of 2021. But it's a way of supporting somebody who puts a lot of work into what they've done. And it's a nice reference, even though I rarely use the PDF. But it is a nice reference. So at the end here, I'm just going to fill this in with the same pattern as I did at the top. But we could do something like that. And of course, we could also use colours. Here, what colour shall I use? I don't want to mess these up. That's the problem. I have got a nice blue though. So I've got this light blue here, which should allow me to add some colour here. And yeah, I've put some white gel dots on there, but that's not a problem. Oh, that'll look quite nice actually on top of the blue. So I'm just adding some spirals in here. It's the Zentangle pattern called Print On. but it will add just some background pattern to the colour. And I much prefer it, I think, with these kinds of patterns that fill in an organic kind of way to the well I just did. But I also quite like using a colour that just tones in and gives that hint. It's going to show up more as I get towards the top. So if I go along this side rather than working from side to side, here I've gone over the black line a bit. But that's not a problem because you just come back with a black pen and go over the gel pen and it disappears. It's quite nice actually because I love the way that this colour, the colour of the gel pens like this always seem to look different on different colours, or you know, the intensity of it changes from the light to dark tone in the background. It's really quite interesting. It gives an interesting appearance. There we go. So again, but with this I would not put these around the, you know, have them floating over the top of the pattern of the motif because you'd lose it. But to add interest to the background instead of just leaving the colour, if you wanted some texture there, this is a nice way to do it. Again, I use these gel pens because they're out, but I could have used fine liners, but just something a bit different. So I'll leave that poking out there as a reminder, perhaps. Can I get them both on the screen? Yeah, I will. So there we go. So I've had some fun today at pen. What can I say? And just showing you some other things you could do. So I hope you find this interesting. I really am going to finish this time, and that you can take something from it and apply to your own work, and just see what happens. This is something I hadn't done before, by the way, as well, until I did it in my sketchbook, and I haven't done it since. So it's new to me and I'm trying to figure it out myself for me. But for this one, I definitely prefer the coloured gel pen on the coloured background to using the black pen and pattern. I think this is subtler, and the black pen takes something away. It makes the background too dark or stark. And the foreground, mind you, there's no shadow on those leaves like there are on these, but that wouldn't make much of a difference to these anyway. But yeah, so experiment, have fun, find time to be creative, and I hope to see you again soon. If you're watching this on Wednesday, as it is Wednesday here in the UK, tomorrow's Thursday, so I won't be doing a video tomorrow. I'll be focusing on other stuff. But fingers crossed, we'll be back Friday and Saturday. So until then, look after yourselves, take care, and I'll see you soon. Ta-ra, bye, hoyle.